This is probably the part of the workshop that you guys were most excited about, short of, running through the math and doing the numbers. I know you were very excited about doing math at 7:30 on a Thursday evening. But following that up is going to be 4 of the most successful food businesses that we have here in the Kansas City area. These gentlemen have walked the walk. They are living the things that you dream about every day. When somebody says, gosh, your is so great and you just have to sell it, they've heard those things. They've gone through the no's. They've worked through the branding process. They have fulfilled the FDA regulations. They have determined their pricing, and they are on store shelves. They've moved off store shelves. They have grown their businesses and now have fabulous, wonderful businesses. Make sure that you guys have good questions for them. We will once again make sure to give away these door prizes that were generously donated by Original Wands here this evening. You guys are not here to hear me talk. So I'm going to have you each just briefly introduce yourself, tell your name, tell the name of your company, how many employees you have, and kind of give us an idea of the scope of your business, either revenues or production facility size, something that gives us a feel for what kind of businesses that you have. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. Leroy, can you take it away and tell us a little bit tell us your name, company name, and size of your business?
Leroy Chateau Milk Company. We have a farm just about an hour north of here, just north of Plattsburgh, Missouri, if anybody knows where that is. We milked about 360 some cows this morning. We actually have over 400 cows. When we started 9 years ago, actually I've milked cows there for going on 38 years. We started bottling our own 9 years ago with 80 cows, and our business plan actually said we wouldn't sell all that milk for the first 6 months, but we did it in the first month. 2 months later, we got 80 more cows, and now we've got over 400 cows. We have about 45 employees, I think, so that's enough to keep us busy.
It is. It is. Gives you a couple of human resources issues, I'd imagine, as well. Joe?
Joe Polo, owner of Original Wands Specialty Foods. We manufacture 13 different brands, 150 different items. We sell it nationwide and worldwide, approximately 20 different countries. We have 40 to 45 employees. In the wintertime, it kind of gets up to 50. And our plant is 60,000 square feet. Production is about 20,000 of the 60. And we're right down on the boulevard with the rest of the boulevard buddies right here. Won't let him bring the cows down. We'll tell him to join us here shortly.
My name's John McDonald, and I'm the owner. John McDonald. I'm the owner and founder of Boulevard Brewing Company. We started making beer in 1989 down on Southwest Boulevard. We're still in the same place. It's grown a little bit over the years. We have about 120 employees now. We sell beer in, I think parts of about 25 states. But about 40% of our production is here in Kansas City, and 80% is within about a 5-state area. So we're fairly local and regional in nature, but we've been growing our market a little bit in recent years.
You've grown a little bit, just a little bit.
Danny O'Neill with the Roastery, and we're a specialty coffee roasting company here in Kansas City, right down from John. And so we have a roasting plant, and we have 3 cafes, and we just started an event space, having a big event there tonight, actually, and a few other things that we're doing, but it's all around roastery and our coffee, and kind of coffee experience, and kind of like what John said. I think we ship coffee to every state. I don't know if we ship to every state every day, but I always feel like the sun rises and sets on Kansas City as far as I'm concerned, and we have folks out doing things around the country, but I'm pretty local now, and then we kind of aspire really to be a regional, strong regional brand. Some of you guys are probably old enough to remember back in the day when each city would have its own regional brands, whether it be bakery or coffee roasting, beer. John knows that market, and I think that's really cool, and I think it's coming back. So we want to be a part of that. But good to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So now that we got all the dry stuff taken care of, the who, what's, whys, when, and the numbers, I want to talk about the passion. You guys are all here because you have a dream. You have something that you want to do, and it's more than just selling a food product. If it was just, cooking something for some people, you would do that on Thanksgiving and call it a day, and you wouldn't sign yourself up to do this math that Rebecca just previously went through. There's something more that you want. Can you guys cover the dream piece? Where's the why? Why did you decide to sign up for this crazy ride they called entrepreneurship? Let's go ahead and start with you, Leroy. Why did you start this business?
My wife made me.
I love that answer.
She said, I milked cows for like 30 years then, and we wasn't making any money because if any of you people know dairy farmers, they probably no longer milk cows because they got smart and quit, okay? Because it's been hard to make money in the dairy business. So she said, we either got to make some money or we got to sell the cows. So then we started thinking about other ways we could maybe have the best milk in Kansas City and bottle our own and whatever. So that's what we tried. And, when we started this, we didn't know whether it was going to work or not. And I'm surprised it did. Nothing else I've done in this life has worked, but it seemed to. But anyway, the neatest part about the passion for me is, all those years milking cows out there, myself and a part-time guy, or sometimes I had a full-time guy, milking 80 cows every morning and every night. Nobody ever told me I'd done a good job or they liked my milk because it usually got on a truck and come down here and went to Roberts or Belfonte. Because we sold to a dairy co-op, just like most dairy farmers do. So I'd work my butt off every morning and every night, and nobody'd say I'd done a good job, plus I wasn't getting paid for it. So, there was days where I thought, why am I doing this? I'm just killing myself. I'm not making any money. And I could have made more money a lot of months sitting over there watching TV at the house. So, so when we started bottling milk and we'd go to stores and sample the milk and even to farmers markets or whatever. People would come, and if I had my shirt on, or I used to have my name on the side of the truck, and
then people started following him.
Well, yeah, they did, and
It's
they
just making that up.
no matter if I was at a stoplight, they'd roll the window down and holler at me and tell me good job, and I'd get goosebumps about 20 times every time I come to Kansas City. And that got to be what kept me going.
Oh.
I mean, I was until a year ago, I was getting up every morning at 3 o'clock and usually not getting to the house till 9:30 or 10.
Nice little weekend business there for you, right?
What is a weekend?
Yeah.
I always hate to hear TGIF because I don't know what that is. But anyway, that's been the motivation for me. I still hope I make my wife some money before I die, but getting pride back in what you do is worth more than any money I can ever make.
Thank you for sharing that. Great story. And can we tell you, we've all like to tell you what a great job you did with bringing us samples, and it's fantastic products. Unfortunately, we're on school district property, so we couldn't bring all of you. You couldn't have all of you bring samples. I don't know if, as much as I would like a Boulevard beer right now, I don't know that the school district would like me to have some. But Joe, can you? I know you have a great story on your website. I was really loving the branding that is extended through your website. Loving the story about Original Wands and where it came from. And if you have not been out to this website, you want to see a really good example of how to tell your story, definitely visit Original Wands. Share the story. Where did this come from?
Well, no one would hire me, and if they did hire me,
good reason.
they would fire me within the first week because they couldn't put up with me. because I think outside the box too much. You can ask Lindsay about that. Actually, I just had a passion to work for myself. I always felt that I could do things better. My background is in the food business. I was a young dishwasher, then got into food and started creating different food menu items for TGI Fridays and some major large chains. And I always had a passion for hot sauces, and that's kind of how the business started, was hot sauces, and we kind of diversified into barbecue sauces and tomato-based products, and surrounded myself with other successful people to bring it to where it is today.
So the desire to do it better. Great, great. John, what about you? Why beer? Well, obviously beer, but why beer for you? Why this particular business?
Well, you know, a lot of people ask me, you know, they think I was a smart guy to start the brewery, but I think my father-in-law said it best when he said he was too stupid to know better. And I think that's, you know, probably a lot of us, that's kind of why we get in business. We're too stupid to know better. It would have been nice to have the banker woman explain some of that stuff to us. Because
you know, I've heard that from all of these gentlemen at this point.
I think we're still trying to figure all that out. But anyway, you know, for me, I love beer. My father had a business, and he wanted me to take it over from him, and I didn't want to because I wasn't interested in that. And so for me, I think a lot of people, there are a lot of entrepreneurs or people that start businesses that do it because they love business. They love the numbers. They love the idea. What it is they sell could be anything, but it's the act of doing business is what makes them tick. And I'm not one of those. I was one that had a particular passion for a certain product, beer, which I liked it. I thought it was historically relevant, and I saw a need in the market for beer that I deem would be the kind of beer that I would like to drink. And I think that's an important thing when you start a business and you're going into a certain area. Make sure there is a need for that. You know, you don't want to just do something that somebody else is already doing. And so I think that's an important thing to think about when you're starting a food-related business.
Excellent.
Mine started, I was did this crazy thing and signed up to be a foreign exchange student when I was in high school in this little tiny town in Iowa. I never left the state without my family, never been on a jet or anything like this, but I signed up, and it sent me to Costa Rica, and I down there in the summer I picked coffee, and absolutely loved it. And didn't drink it at the time, but I loved the whole experience. It reminded me a lot of Iowa. And then, so I came back and went to college. I was going to say something about my school, but I won't. Anyway, the first finals I went to, I started drinking coffee and absolutely loved it, and just drank, and I'm seeing them out every single day since then, and just got into it more and more and more until this is a long time ago. Today, you know, it's like everybody does it, but in the late 80s, I was taking a hot air popcorn popper and making coffee roasting little machines, and people didn't go, oh, that's cool, he's into it. It was like, that is weird, and it was really geeky. And then, long story, but I went to Russia a couple times in the early 90s, and I just came back totally convinced that what I needed to do was different, and I was in a big corporation, and I didn't fit, and I wanted, the only thing I could think about was coffee, and I was based in Seattle back then, and started drinking really great coffee, you know, back in the mid 80s, and so the only idea that I had was coffee, and people kept trying to talk me out of it, but then I started dreaming about it, and I was kind of like Leroy with the cows. If it weren't coffee, I probably would have gone to the Peace Corps, because that was the only strong passion for a business that I had, and so it was the only one. So, and thank God it worked. But anyway, that's it.
All right. So I think we heard, Leroy, you milked cows before you started this business. So you were doing that's what you were doing beforehand. We heard that, Danny, you worked for a large corporation at the time. John, what were you doing before you decided to start Boulevard Brewing Company?
Well, I went to KU and back in the early 70s and went to art school. And of course, when you get out of art school, there's not a lot of employment for you. So I did what most art students do, and I became a carpenter and then a cabinet maker, and had a wood shop actually in the brewery where the brewery is today. And so I was in that building way back in the day, in the early 80s actually, and late 70s, early 80s. And yeah, so that's what I did. I was a cabinet maker, carpenter.
Cabinet maker turned beer maker. Interesting. What about you, Joe? What did you do before you started Original Wands?
I was always in the food business as a young kid. Started washing dishes. Got a passion for getting into with the chefs into the front of the house or the front of the kitchen, and kind of peeled my way out of the dishwashing area. And I had a love for food, and started creating different dishes. Then went into menu development and design, and the rest of that is history.
And now we have tasty sauces. Great, great. Well, so many of us are working a current job. We're dreaming about not cows or coffee, but we're dreaming about our French macarons or whatever it is that we make. When you started this business, and I know this wasn't on the list of questions, but were you doing something else? Were you working while you started this, or when it was time to start the business, did you go all in, go no holds bar? How did you guys get started? Any of you can hop in and answer this one.
Well, I kind of married into this mess. My wife's parents used to milk cows before I come along, and when we got married, and I went to Warrensburg and took some agriculture classes, and then after college, he asked me if I would go in partners with him because he had 3 daughters. He didn't have a son to do all of his work, so he picked me out. So that's how I ended up there.
I was running and owned Original Juan's or Dos Hombres Mexican restaurants. We wanted to get a little less complex, a little easier type of business. It's kind of like that. The grass is greener on the other side. Actually, that's not true. So I've experienced it. But I was in the restaurant business, and yes, we were doing the restaurant business for a good period of time in the mid 80s, late 90s, and then we kind of spawned a business called La Tejada out of Kansas City in Overland Park in the early 90s. We ran both businesses until La Tejada had some legs. We started franchising that, and it turned into Original Juan with a lot of other complicated mess that I don't want to get into.
Yeah, for me, I was working, 2 jobs. I was working as a carpenter, cabinet maker, and then starting the brewery and doing that all at the same time. And kind of there was an overlap period there, and where I was making a lot more money being a cabinet maker than making beer. But eventually, it just kind of took over.
I quit my job, but back then it was '93, and you didn't quit a great job. It wasn't cool, and it was the middle of a recession, so I just said I was going to take a year's leave of absence. But my boss knew I wasn't coming back, and I knew I wasn't going back. But back then it was an easy way. Today, if I'm in a group and I say I'm a corporate dropout, all the heads kind of nod. But in '93, it wasn't cool to do something like that. So that's what I did. But so I jumped in and just started doing research, and back then we didn't have an internet, so it was a lot more difficult than it is today to do research. So I had to kind of go hoof it, and went back down to Central America many more times, and anyway, but yeah, I wouldn't say I would like advise that to people, but for me, I have to like burn the ships. I need to like be all in and take the risk and have to make it work. Because I think that for me the temptation might have been too great. because as you guys all probably hear before the night's over, it is so damn hard, and you really need to be committed to jump in, I think.
Thank you for saying exactly that, because I hear this a lot. If I would have known it was going to be this hard when I started, I may have thought twice or three times about that. So thanks for sharing that. So many of us are at that very first beginning stage. We're doing the math, we're running the numbers, we're putting together our startup costs. John, what was your biggest startup cost getting started in your business? I know you have a manufacturing facility that you had to bill out, and I know we had that question earlier about kind of what were those costs like. What was the biggest piece of the pie for you?
Well, breweries are pretty capital intensive. It's interesting. I think we started the brewery with about $750,000 of capital. We couldn't get a bank loan then at all because everybody thought that's crazy. You can't. And I had raised about half the money in equity, put in quite a bit of money myself, everything I had. Probably wasn't so smart. And then I had a private individual who actually did the bank piece of it. So, but yeah, very capital intensive. But and one of the things I always tell people when you're starting up, we almost went out of business in the first year because we just didn't have enough money. And it's good to make sure you don't overspend, that you don't want a lot of money, because then you just throw money at all your problems, and then that's not a good thing either. But you got to make sure you've got enough money to get you through that first year or two until you're actually in a positive cash flow situation. So
That's really
it's
great.
good to have something like like a kicker. Like if you're doing okay and you think you also don't want to throw good money after bad. You don't want to just throw more money at it and lose even more money. So it's good to have a mechanism that would kick in money in after a year and look like you were going to make it and look like your business was doing good. Because I'm sure you'll probably, unless you're independently wealthy and you're just doing it for fun, you're going to need some more money.
It's a really great point, and I'm going to kind of fly off the cuff and ask a brief question. What was the biggest early money mistake that you made? Something you spent, any of you guys want to answer this one? What is an early money mistake that you made? Now, hindsight's 20/20, that you maybe wish that you would spent too much on, overestimated.
Actually, I got asked this question in a different context today, and I had to recall it. But it was we wanted to. One of our specialties early on is doing custom blends. I always have this feeling: give the customer what they want, where they want, how they want, when they want. And customers wanted their own blends because they can be dramatically different, obviously. Well, then we created one and then another, and now we have, I think, I don't even know, more than a couple thousand. And coffees from 33 different countries, and it got really complex to go through. We call it the Bible, the recipe book. And so I was in Brazil one time, and somebody said, "Oh, we can do that for you. We can automate that for you." And so just total Iowa naiveness. I was like, "Oh, great! I've been thinking about this forever. This is exactly what I want." And we gave them like a down payment of like $80,000, and then another 80, and another this and that, and then we had this team come up from Brazil, and they lived here and worked here for months trying to put that thing together and to get it to work. And there is a point in this, I can tell you. And it was like, at some point in time, I think we finally paid a guy in Kansas City, Kansas, to come over with the plasma torch, and I paid him $25,000 to cut it up and haul it away. And it was probably about $400,000 at the end of the day.
Wow.
And had I just simply done the homework and done a little bit of research, but I remember telling Normie, my longtime old partner, I said, "You know what? We're going to amortize this over the rest of our careers, and it's going to end up being a really inexpensive mistake at the end of the day."
Sometimes it's all in the way you look at things, right? Danny, I'm going to ask you to keep that microphone. favorite Danny O'Neill stories is your process of kind of applying for a business loan. How many of you guys would love to have a business loan to start your business? Oh, I'm so happy to see like 5 hands. Because most of the time, it ends up being the things that people feel like they need. You know, if you had just a little bit more money, then business would just be easier. Danny, can you tell a little bit about your experience of applying for a business loan and what that was like in the early days?
You bet. Again, I'm a poli sci major, international studies, and honest to God, I still don't feel like I really know business, and I don't consider myself a business person, and I just rely on common sense. So have a lot of just simple, naive Iowa-ness, and I just knew that I'd have this idea, and I was going to go get a loan. And that's what from the time I was 14 or 15, I bought motorcycles. I would, scoop snow, do whatever it took. I'd go get a loan. I'd buy a motorcycle, and it always worked out. Well, I started having that idea. I had $17,000 saved up, and I bought a roaster, and that was 12. So now I had 5, and so I just started going meeting bankers and having these, what I, nicely call today's clunk discussions. And well, it wasn't going anywhere. Everybody was telling me no, and so you want me to tell the one about the earthquake?
I've not heard this one, please.
Okay. Well, anyway, now I had like $5,000. I'm making my house payment. This is '93, and it was $850 a month, I think. And so at the time, I called up. It was Weyerhaeuser Mortgage, and they were in L.A. And I said, again, this had a lot more validity before this last 4 years of chaos in the financial markets. But I said, well, you know what? I'm going to keep making my house payment. I'm not going to be able to have any money for this business I want to do. And at the time, this woman says, well, you can't not make your house payment. And I said, well, I could not make my house payment. And she said, well, we'd have your house. We'd take your house. And I said, well, this is dumb. I'm not going to be able to get a business going, and then I won't be able to make my house payment. It seems stupid. And again, this is in '93, right? So she said, well, you can't just not make it. After the end of a couple days of conversations, they let me go 3 months. I wish I would ask for more time, but 3 months without making a house payment, and then I'd have to double up at the end. Well, in March of 1994, there was a big earthquake in L.A., and it wiped out the office where my mortgage was. And so they didn't call me, and I didn't call them. And so in May then, so that year, so we were doing, we were getting up at 4 in the morning or 7 in the morning. We were working till about 4 in the morning. It was about 21 hours. And then we do this, Saturday, Sunday work and yada, yada. But anyway, nobody was drawing any salaries, and it was in my basement, so we weren't paying rent, and I wasn't having to make the house payment. And so the only expense was just our utilities. And so anyway, so I was still seeing banks. I think at the time I used to be able to say I went to 6 banks and couldn't get a loan. And that's, in the old days, that was a lot. Today it's like you'd laugh at all you guys would probably laugh at that story. But anyway, then in May, that woman who was so nice turned into this Rottweiler. And so I remember sitting on the couch, and she said, this is so-and-so from Weyerhaeuser Mortgage, and we're going to need this and this. And I said, well, yeah, I kind of tried to do my Iowa thing again. Yeah, we're trying to get something going. And I remember saying, it's Tuesday. If we don't have it's Wednesday. If we don't have a check by Friday, you will lose your house. And so that's how close we came in. So I'm still living in the house. I made the payment. We made it. But then that was in May, and I saw Jazoo was that night. We were that first week in June, and we were donating coffee out there. And I saw a friend of John and mine, who became a very good friend of mine, who I'd applied for a loan for Grant Birchment Missouri Bank. And he had this tuxedo coat and boxer shorts. And I thought, that is my kind of banker. I'm going to chase him. I just noticed I have his pin here, but so we chased him, and then they finally said yes, but I had to go to their board and convince them, and there's a point in that too, convince them that I was a good risk, because I had like like at that point in time, I think I probably had like $3,000. If I don't even know if I had that much, but almost no collateral. But I went in there and told my story, and they could feel the passion. And that's somebody mentioned that before. That would be my last parting advice: is just make sure it's something you just like put your life on. You got to feel strongly enough, because I know that's the only reason I got that loan, because they could tell how passionate I was.
Great. Thank you for sharing that story. Joe, for so many of our attendees tonight, they're dreaming about the first customer. So take yourself back all these years ago, your very first customer. Who were they? What was that process like? And how many no's did you get before you got to that first customer?
Well, I was fortunate. My first customer was myself.
That's helpful. If you can buy your own product.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had
Work for profitability.
yeah. Well, actually, I had two businesses. One was a retail shop called La Tejada and Colito Chili Traders, and we opened up Original Juan, which was the manufacturing, and we had franchisees out there, 50 of them, that needed product that wasn't getting product enough from the actual first business. So we saw a problem out there, and a group of my friends and I started Original Juan and supplying them. So right off the bat, we were blessed with probably $150,000 to $200,000 worth of orders
Oh,
the
wow.
first year. So
Yes, that's all what we're dreaming about, right?
but that was something that came to us because of the failure of the franchise system, and the franchise system was really hard, and that was a financial implosion, if you will, if that's a word. But it was a lot of sweat and tears and a lot of hard work for about 8 years, and you get involved with people lending you money and BCs, and you've got your passion there, and then you can see all they're worrying about is the money and not the quality of the product. And we saw that was going to come to an end fairly quickly, so we started another business supplying the first business, and from there the franchise system kind of dwindled away, and from there on I said we're going to manufacture the best product that we possibly can, and sell it to all the merchandisers out there through the Fancy Food Show and specialty shops around the country. And we did so, and we're here where we are today, and we're in several different facets. Now we're in the food service, specialty shops, big box stores, and we've been able to make the right decisions, more right decisions than wrong decisions. Believe me, there's been plenty of wrong decisions and harebrained ideas and things, but you know what? You got to keep going with your passion, your vision, and those dreams that Danny and Leroy's talking about. You know, I have them every night too, and I come in the office and people think I'm half crazy, but you always got to keep reinventing yourself and coming up with the next best widget. So
that actually came down to one of my other questions, was that your business model has changed quite significantly over the years. The other three gentlemen here, how have your businesses changed from what you originally intended? I can imagine, Joe, you didn't start out thinking, well, we're going to produce products for all of these hundreds of companies. But you know, can you, one of you guys, talk about how your business model has changed since you very first started?
Well, our business plan wasn't any good. It was about this thick, and it wasn't any good about a month after we started, because we already sold all the milk from 80 cows, and so I mean everything was working so much better. And what was the question?
How your business model has changed.
that's it.
Does it look like you
Okay.
thought it would have
Well,
all those years when you were dreaming?
Yeah, I would have been okay just selling milk from 80 cows.
Okay.
But all these customers get mad if they can't find root beer milk, so we had to buy more cows. And so that's kind of, and you know, we never thought about doing cheese, butter, and ice cream. Well, I found out all these damn people drink skim milk, so that gives you cream. So then we had to start making butter, And then in the summertime we'd run out of milk, so we thought, well, we'll get more milk, and if we have more milk, we'll make cheese. If we don't have more milk, we won't make cheese. But we can't let these people run out of root beer milk. So anyway, then then we started selling more milk. So we had more cream, so we started making ice cream. So we've actually been driven to this, and I don't know.
Thank you.
And I don't know how to make it stop.
We don't think you should. We definitely don't think you should. Well, I think that's so interesting. That's two stories of a need then guiding your business in a way that you didn't necessarily intend to. Was there any things that you guys thought that you were going to do that you then, maybe some of those harebrained ideas that you came up with that needed to be quickly abandoned? Can one of you guys talk about something you thought was a good idea, started doing, and then needed to abandon? Any takers? Trying to figure out which one is going to share their dirty laundry here.
No, I really have a lot of them, but I think
You're an entrepreneur. It's necessary. It's
but
part
I
of
do.
the
I
job.
mean, I dream about coffee every night, and I don't think I've never not dreamt about coffee. So, but I don't mind having a bunch of harebrained ideas. I tell everybody, and then every once in a great while, there's a good one in there. But I think so. We've made bazillions of errors, but I don't really think of them that way. I really, we were talking with a bunch of educators this morning, and I said, I think the notion that I really like is, I tell my staff this, we want to fail more often, but fail faster. And I was just thinking about I kind of compared it to the American model versus the European model. We're just a country of entrepreneurs. We think out of the box. We try things. If it doesn't work, we try something else. We try something else. We try something else. And we aren't this old stodgy thing that we tried that, so we're never going to try something else again. And, I just had this idea or philosophy, just get up off your you-know-what and go try something else, and if that didn't work. And Edison had that, all those old guys had that. And so I really do. I want to get it out there and try it faster. I'd say one of the things that we did lately that we spent quite a bit of money on that didn't work, but it might work now. But this custom blends, almost everybody likes the idea of sitting down and I'm going to have this guy do it sometime. And just creating their own custom blend, and there's this epiphany that goes off when they can really differentiate the difference and see what they've created. And we just have a process that's kind of simple and not intimidating. So I thought, well, everybody would want to do this, and we'll put it up on the internet. And we spent quite a bit of money, and Oprah put it in her magazine, and not very many people wanted to do it. But it's still back there in my mind, and I wouldn't mind trying that again at some point. But I think the idea, though, I get your question, but I really think the idea is you just hurry up and try it and keep trying it and make mistakes. But if you make enough of them, make them fast enough, then they're not really very expensive.
So don't stick with them for too long.
Yeah, or don't worry about it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Test.
Boulevard Brewing Company is now the 17th largest brewing company in the nation, and I am proud to say the largest American-owned brewery in the state of Missouri. Yeah. I imagine your delivery methods, your distribution methods have changed a bit over the years. Can you talk about what that looked like in the very, very, very first early days and kind of how that's evolved over time?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, we did our own. We were allowed. In some states, you can't, as a brewer, do your own distribution. But in the state of Missouri, you could. And so we basically had a truck, and we delivered draft beer. Our first year in business, we had draft only. It was keg beer, so we sold that to retailers. And it was interesting, one of the banks that never gave me any money anyway, I don't know why I did it, but they said, well, how do you know people are going to buy this beer? Why don't you go out and do a survey and go to 150 bars and ask them if they'll buy your beer? And of course I did, and all 150 bars said they would. Of course, when I actually had beer to sell, then it was about 10. And so, it was really tough, but we had, it was interesting, even after we had bottled beer a year later, we started the brewery, and we had signed up the Coors wholesaler here in Kansas City to sell our bottled beer, and we did all our draft beer. And then over the years, over about 5 years, I think we finally sold the rest of it off in '95. And our one guy, this guy, he still works for me, Steve Decker, but he sold more beer than our beer wholesaler did in the rest of the city.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And so, and he sold beer only between 75th Street, State Line, Truce. So, but there's a high concentration of bars there. But it was kind of a good thing in the beer business. One of the people that told me, and one of the things when you work with distributors, especially in the beer business, you know, and there's what in the beer business they have what they call franchise laws, which is were set up way back after Prohibition to protect the small beer distributors in the state from the big nasty national brewers who had all this money. And so basically, but that doesn't work. It's a reverse problem when you have a small brewer who then still has those laws, and a wholesaler really can choose just not to sell your beer. So if for whatever reason that maybe a big brewery comes in and says, oh, I'll give you $25,000 just to not sell that guy's beer, they might do it. And so there's a lot of that has gone on in the beer business. And somebody, when I started the brewery, gave me some good advice. He said, you really need, if you can, you should do your own distribution, because if you do, you'll know why your beer doesn't sell or does sell, and you'll know what it is to be a distributor and to go into a bar owner and say, hey, buy some beer from me and deliver the beer and all that. So, you know, and it was a tough time, you know, to do that. But I got to tell you a really funny story, though. There's this one tavern that we used to deliver to called Twin City Tavern. And when I first started the brewery, you know, I'd go deliver beer. Sometimes I'd brew beer and we'd package beer. But some days Steve would be busy delivering beer, and I'd have to take a beer to an account. This one day I took a quarter barrel to Twin City Tavern, which is up on the state line. It's still there. Used to be owned by a guy named Mike Renner. And so I go in there, it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and there are three old geezers sitting at the bar. And they're drinking their Busch Light, you know, no foam on the beer, you know, don't want to be cheated out of, you know, that one little quarter ounce of liquid beer with some ridiculous foam on the beer. So so they're sitting there, and so Mike goes, you guys, you should try this guy's beer. You know, here he is delivering his own beer. He makes it just a few miles from here. And so he pours them all three a glass of beer, and two of them take a little sip out of it, put it back down, push it back across the bar. One guy wouldn't even try it. And then they just kind of went silent, and I was kind of thinking, oh, this is really bad. You know, I'm going to go broke. You know, this is so terrible. You know, I'm not going to be able to feed my family. And then when I was walking out the door, the one guy that tried the beer, he turns to me and he goes, young man, that is absolutely the worst beer I've ever had in my life. And of course, I felt like, oh, my God, this is horrible. But you know what? Today we sell a lot of beer at Twin City Tavern, and all three of those guys are dead. So one of the things that, you know, what I'm saying is if you stay in business long enough, some of your detractors will die. So anyway. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
excellent. That's a great story. But what I'm really interested in is the next morning. How did you find the gumption to go out the next day? The moment after, when the sting still hurts, because that's your heart. I mean, we're talking about our dreams here. What was that like the next day? How did you do that? You just did it? And
Well, you know, I think my remembrance of the early days of the brewery was, you know, frankly, once I took people's money and put all that money into it, I just said to myself, okay, I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm just going to work as hard as I can and just will this thing to happen. And I think, you know, in those early days, I think about it now, you know, 25 years later, you know, I worry a lot about a lot of things, and I'm not as active physically active in the business as I used to be, and I think back in those early days, you just worked all the time, so you didn't have time to worry too much about what people thought.
So if the
Whatever,
no
you just-
stings, you're
Yeah,
not
I
working
think,
hard enough?
Huh?
I said if the no still stings, you're not working hard enough?
Yeah,
Keep going.
I think you just gotta get back on the horse. I think that's the
Great answer.
thing you gotta do.
For so many of us, we rely on our friends and family for feedback on our recipes, on our products, on the things that we've come up with. Danny, I know that one of your keys is having just the right balance of the right blend. In the early days, who was your feedback? And how did you make sure that they weren't just being nice?
That's we had similar experiences because totally different than beer, but almost exactly the same. I mean, John had all the commercial brewers, we had all the commercial roasters. So when we introduced Ethiopia and the Kenya and Sumatran coffees in 1993, they were like, "What the hell is that?" And so we had a whole bunch of those kinds of experiences. But I would have tasting parties. I had a whole bunch of them, and
Were they
people
just friends or?
yeah, friends and folks from Rockhurst and neighbors. But I mean, I want to know, and everybody who knows me knows that I don't feel like I need an accolade or an attaboy. I want the truth, and anybody knows me. Anybody like I probably have had 100 people or more than maybe 500 since we started the company who would say something to the fact, "Hey, I don't want to tell you this, but I know you're the guy that wants to know this," and I always do, and I hate what's going to come, but it's something that we didn't do right or something. But I am the person that I do want to know. I want to know how you feel and how it tastes. So, but it was, I mean, we bought the best coffee that we could find on the planet. So I wanted to, I did choose people who could differentiate taste, which not everybody can, right? So. But if you can differentiate taste, and these are extraordinary world-class coffees, then the feedback was pretty good.
Any of you other guys want to take a stab at that? Where's your taste testers, and how do you encourage them to give you honest feedback?
Well, we have a staff of 40 to 45, and everybody comes from all walks of life. And we have a test kitchen. As we launch a product, we try to internally get a feel for if it's going in the right direction for mainstream, or if it's way out there for the chili heads out there, or for those wimpies out there. And we try to come up with a consensus of a group effort of, is this going to be able to hit the marketplace and have some legs to it or not? And I think over the years, the ones that didn't see my vision, they're not there any longer. Just kidding. But for the most part, everybody as a group try to get an input of what the flavors are. And what we really try to do at Original One is we try to think outside the box, come up with things that's not in the marketplace, and come up with solutions for the everyday foodie out there. And that's always a challenge. We had a peanut butter salsa that I loved, but most of the group didn't. But we went ahead and launched it, and guess what? It didn't work.
Fail
But
fast,
I still love
right?
it, yeah. But you got to just man up to the facts, and as John said, you got to get on the horse and ride again. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Absolutely.
Well, we do tours out on the farm. We have about 120 city people come out to see what a cow looks like about every day. And those are the people we use for testing whatever we have. We actually tried some apple pie milk the other day, and some chocolate cherry, and some chocolate mint, and cookies and cream, I think. And the one that was really nasty was candy corn milk.
Oh.
That needs a lot of work. But this is it's always fun to do that, and I have always told everybody since I started I wanted to be the dairy farmer that made milk fun, because not only we got people drinking milk that give up on drinking milk, but even tall people. I mean, we got them diehard root beer milk drinkers, so we keep trying to come up with something different to make it fun. So that's what we do.
Awesome. So keep that microphone handy, Leroy. This next one's for you. So you're with your wife, you're with the family. You guys have decided you're not going to sell using the same old market method. You're not going to just sell the Roberts. You're going to package your own product. You've got the product. You're going to approach somebody to get their very first product on that store shelf. What does that process look like? Where did you go? What did you have? What did it feel like?
I was scared to death. I mean, I've been talking to cows for 30 years. I'm not used to talking to people, so here I am, and like John did, kind of sort of the same thing. I thought I was going to be really smart. I get done with milking, I get cleaned up, and I actually had a glass bottle, like our half-gallon bottles, and I filled it full of sugar to make it look like milk, because it was like 90 degrees outside, and I didn't want to carry milk around all day. So what I was going to do, I made up this letter of intent, and this letter of intent wasn't legal. It wasn't anything. It was just to let me know that these stores might be interested in carrying our product. So I can remember, it was like yesterday, the first store I went to was a Country Mart at Kearney. And I go in and I asked to talk to and matter of fact, I knew him, so that helped a little bit. And, I told him what I was getting ready to do. We was thinking about bottling our milk from our own cows and having the freshest milk in town. And we was going to, and I had this bottle in a black got milk bag, which is really cool, right? So anyway, so I was talking to him, and about that time I pulled this bottle up out of the bag, and I mean his eyes got that big, and he said, "Oh God, that looked good on the dairy shelf." So anyway, he signed it. I went to Hy-Vee Liberty, which was one of the first Hy-Vees we was in, and I talked to the director of that store, and he signed it. I went to a couple Price Chopper stores. I thought they could do it like the Country Mart and the Hy-Vee did, but no, you got to go talk to the main office. So I go over at this office, and here Victor Cosentino was, and I was kind of, I just didn't feel good talking to these big guys, I was just a dairy farmer. So anyway, by the time I got done with the same spew to Victor, he said, "Well, why don't we make you an exclusive to all of our stores?" Well, I thought, holy crap! I come down here to get rid of milk from 80 cows, and there's no way I can take care of all of Victor's stores. So anyway, I turned around, come back home, and I was just whistling all the way home. And matter of fact, I even stopped and told my banker what I did. I was so proud of myself. And I had so much fun that day, I went out the next day and done the same thing. And I had a whole bunch of sheets of these papers that really didn't mean anything, but they did mean something,
Yeah.
And when we got everything, and that was a year before I got the plant going and whatever. And so then after we got it going, I went back to these same people, and they all wanted the milk. So it seemed to work.
I'd say so.
And then like these Hy-Vee stores, just like Paul, I'm glad he's it's okay.
He's gone now,
Yeah,
but
well, there's another deal that come up you might ask questions about, and I was glad he left. So anyway, but Paul's great. The Hy-Vees are great. But these Hy-Vee guys all have meetings every Thursday, I think, and they go to different stores and have a meeting. So once we got started in one or two Hy-Vees, then when they go to these meetings, they talk about what's selling and what's going on. And then every time they had a meeting, I'd get a call from more Hy-Vees. And now we're in all the Hy-Vee stores. So
the same process is happening for a couple of our clients right now. So interesting to note. A little bit harder to get into Constantino's, easier to get into Hy-Vees. Good story. That kind of gets us to another question, and any of you guys can take this one. Have things ever progressed so fast that you were concerned you wouldn't be able to handle it, whether that becomes financially, production-wise? When have you ever been to that point?
you can grow too fast. and that's what was happening to us. I mean, we was buying more cows and more feed and more whatever, and I found out these guys don't pay for stuff when you take it to them. I mean, you got to wait a couple weeks or whatever, and then you always find one or two that don't pay at all. So anyway, we did find out that you can grow too fast, and especially with buying all those cows and all the feed stuff to take care of those cows, and so that scared us there for a while.
Those variable costs went up a bit on you. Anybody else want to take a gander at that? You've all had some really great growth.
Yeah, I'd say we ran out of money several times, and we're kind of out of money right now. we
If
did
you're looking for an investment,
that damn airplane, that's why.
Yeah.
Something was I can't remember what it was today, but something was there was some capital expense today, and it was so good. I wanted to do it so badly, and I said, God dang it, Jenny, we're $40,000 short of having $40,000, and but I, John made a really good point earlier. I love that. I love the edge. I love adventure. I love pressure, that kind of pressure, and I really feel I like to live there without a bunch of money because I don't trust us, and I think more than once I've said earlier on that we were lucky to not have a bunch of money when we started because we never would have made it. Because if you can reach in your pocket and pull out money, you'll throw that at the problem, and most of the time, money's not the answer. That's that one thing I love about our travels around the world to all the developing countries. You see all these just as ingenious ways to solve little problems, and that's how people solve them when they don't have money. They have to use their heads, and and again, we ran out of money many times, and I would say if you're starting off without much money, we call it bootstrapping. That's still by far my favorite. You need money. You have to go back and get some when you need it. And you don't want to be in that position where you're doing really well, and you can do even better if you just had more money. Then you definitely need to have money, but to just start to have a pot of money, and then expect it to make you successful. I think it's just a total prescription for disaster, actually.
So I want you guys to each keep that little story in your pockets, in your hearts, when you feel like you can't do it because there's not the money. Danny said, not Stephanie, but Danny said, it's a good exercise in getting smarter, in finding another way. If money's the only option, then you need to go back to the drawing board. Excellent, excellent point. Let's see. This one is for you, Joe. I know you work with a lot of co-packers. You work with a lot of people who are just getting started, starting a business. Do you agree with some people's advice about starting a business and asking for money from friends and family to start that business?
In my view, absolutely not. I think you need to belly up to the bar, scrape the money, and try to live in with your means. Start small. I think in the past you've probably heard over the different television channels and things where they talk about entrepreneurs starting with credit cards. Credit cards are dangerous, but that's how a lot of these places started. People has started. I just found over the years, family is great. But if you keep them within arm's length with money, it's better. When you're dealing with them and you've got a loan from your father-in-law or your sister-in-law or brother-in-law, it can get kind of hairy. And I just found I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've had about 5 or 6 businesses that has failed, and or we've changed directions, and I've had some of those experiences. So. What I found was to be able to start a business with maybe 1 or 2 credit cards or savings of $5,000 to $10,000, and start small. Try to have another form of income until you build the business, and then parachute into the business full time. Well, that's what I've been able to do, from Dos Hombres to La Tejada to Colito Chili Traders to Original Juan. and I've been blessed to be able to always think about the next idea, and sometimes that's dangerous, but I didn't think about the next idea anymore because I've been doing this for 15 years, last year in April, so I think I've got the idea of how to do it and what to do, and now I just need to keep coming up with innovative items and creative items to keep it fresh and new in the marketplace. So.
Well, we
hopefully
are
that
running out of time faster than I had hoped. I was hoping we'd be able to keep them all here all night. But I really want to get to kind of the heart of what your advice is for all these budding foodpreneurs here in front of you. Some of them have an idea. Some of them have something that they're struggling with. Some of them are at the point where they're trying to decide, I've got something. Do I want to move forward with this? What is your best piece or two of advice for somebody who's just very getting started? Danny, we'll start with you.
Mine is always the same. Start with something. If you're not absolutely just burning on fire, passionate about it, don't do it, because it's going to be way flipping harder than you ever thought. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. A friend of mine in Omaha years ago said, "Boy, if you decide to do this, just get ready, because strap yourself on, because it's going to be one hell of a ride." And that was 19 years ago, and she was exactly right. But I would never do anything else. But I can tell you, those dark days, it's not the idea of dollar signs that pull you through those. It's this intrinsic notion from within that you know in your heart of hearts you're doing what you're supposed to do, compelled to do, drawn to do, forced to do, whatever the case is. But you never ever quit. And if it's not something that you're just absolutely passionate about, that manifests itself like, well, I didn't sign up for this shit. Well, this is way harder. Well, I could make more money. All that's true. That's why it's got to be passion. And the other thing I'd say is, I was thinking about a couple of weeks ago. John came up and we talked in our cupping room, and I thought, oh, I was just thinking back when I met him in the fall of '93, and they were doing their 5-year anniversary, and I thought after that day, I thought, oh, I'd love to be able to go back down to Boulevard the way it was before and come back when we were small. There's a lot of those days I miss when it was not easier, but it was simpler probably, But when I met Henry Block, who became my mentor in 95 or 6, probably the same size as a lot of you guys are, and he said he was listening to me, and of course I just needed a pot of money to make my problems go away, and he goes, you don't know it now, but where you're at is where it's the most fun. And of course, I wanted to say, "Oh no, Henry, you have no idea." Well, I wanted to unload, but I would say, when you're growing, when it's fresh, and that's kind of why we kind of keep betting the farm and reinventing ourselves. Not reinventing ourselves, you know what I mean, though, but just doing something new.
Like buying a plane and putting it on the top of a building?
Like that. But something totally new, because it is, where you're at is really fun. You'll never, ever forget it. And I miss kind of where you guys are, so. Anyway,
you ever want to come hang out? We've got a really pretty
closer,
kitchen.
Closer to Brookside. But anyway, it's good to be here. And I just encourage you all. And like Gail at Worth Harley Davidson, she says, talking about never quitting, and she always talks about entrepreneurs being too stupid to know when to quit, and I do believe that. So I would just say, don't quit.
Great advice, John.
Fritz Maytag, who owned Anchor Steam Brewery, who started back in the '60s, he was sort of the predecessor of all the rest. Yeah, he was. Yeah, of course, he was also heir to the Maytag washing machine fortune, and that helped. But he said to me one time, and I've always thought this is true, and I think the great thing, he said, make it a good story and make it a real story. And I think, when you're, that's important, is it should be about what you're about, and your brand that you develop, should stand for, what it is you're trying to do. And, people, I still think we do pretty much the same thing we started doing 24 years ago. We still approach it in a lot of the same ways. It's just a lot bigger scale and a lot a lot different. But I think, you know, that's something that's always stuck with me. I think it's an important thing when you're starting your business.
Joe, what about you? What's your best advice for our foodpreneurs as they prepare to leave this evening?
5 statements. Do what you love. Watch your salary. Watch your inventory. Know your costs. And never, never, never quit.
Good stuff.
I don't have much to add to all that stuff. That's pretty cool stuff. But you know, make more milk.
Drink more milk.
I'm gonna make enough money where I can get a great big cow and put on top of my silo. That's my plan. No, I mean the passion. You got to have the passion. If you don't have it, forget it. And if you don't want to work hard, forget it. I knew this was my venture was going to be a lot of work, but it's been twice more than I ever dreamt. And then when you start hiring employees, I can get my cows to do what I want them to. These people are a different deal, okay? so anyway, but what they said is about all of it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Round of applause. Thank you for not only sharing, but also for being such great leaders and such great examples of what it's all about.